Hey, I'm Roland, and today we want to take a look at the Moto G5. This is not the Moto G5 Plus, this is the base model. This is available in Europe right now for 200 euros. It should be cheaper in places like India and China, and it's definitely cheaper in South America, depending on which country you're in. But let's just get it out of its box first, and we're going to do a quick unboxing here. So here you have the phone, tells you a bunch of stuff about the device itself, about the battery size and the camera and stuff, but we'll put that to the side for a second. I'll get back to that in a minute. Here's your Hello Moto, and going further down into the packaging, you get your USB cable, which is a micro USB cable, and this one right here is your charging brick. It has 5 volts and 2 amps, so that works out to 10 watts charging power, so that's just an average power brick, but it's nice to see this 5 volt or 2 amp charger with the Moto G5 right now, because the G4 only had this crappy half amp charger, which took forever to charge the device if you didn't get the Moto G5 G4 Plus. This is the battery, so it's replaceable on this one. On the 5 Plus, it's not replaceable, so that's definitely an advantage for the G5. This is a 2800 milliamp hour battery. Remember, on the G5 Plus, it is a 3000 milliamp hour battery. And down here, you just get a bunch of more information. There's a quick start guide in here. This is actually a Dutch model that I bought in Denmark. So there's a small difference in the hardware, which is the German model only has 2 gigs of RAM, and this one actually has 3 gigs of RAM, but it costs the same money. So I don't know why they do that, but we'll see about that in a second. So here's the G5 itself, taking it out of its box, and we'll put the battery in a second. Let me just quickly get the fall off first. And what I can already tell you that it's super hard to remove this back. So it took me like 5 minutes. That's why I'm not gonna do it on camera. But you basically have to grip this part down here and then hold your hand back here and like rip it open, and it's super hard to get off. But once you have it off, you can put in the 2800 milliamp hour battery, and also down here you get access to your combined SIM card and SD card slot, and there's your second SIM card slot. So this takes 2 SIMs actually. There's also a dual SIM version or a single SIM version of this device that is also available in Europe. It's really nice to see that Motorola has actually been smart enough to do 2 separate SIM card slots plus an additional SD card slot. So sometimes you always get this combined slot, so you can only have either a micro SD card or your SIM card in the devices. This one can actually take all 3 of them in the same device. Up here is your 13 megapixel camera that has this dual LED flash. There's no specific or nothing special about the camera, except it has face detection autofocus, but that is becoming more common. Laser autofocus and all that kind of stuff is not going to be found on here. What's also interesting is that they have integrated the NFC into the back cover, so you see all these contacts up here, and these connect to the cover itself, and the NFC part is actually integrated into the back plate here, so that works by adding a cover to the device. Let's just put on the cover right now, and while the device boots up, I'll show you around the device for a second. We get the device going. So we have this new Motorola animation right here. It's going to play a bit of sound in a second, but let's just take a quick look around. So you have the volume rocker up here, which sits pretty nice and tight. It doesn't really wobble at all. It has a nice click point and good feel to it. You always want to make sure the case gets fully clicked in. Down here is your power button that has a small pattern on it, so you can easily find it. It also has a pretty nice click point to it, and yeah, not much of a wobble going on there. The whole thing is 9.5 millimeters thick and weighs in at 144.5 grams. Let's move over to the bottom. So this is the part where you open up the device. You just hold it and pull really hard. Down here is your micro USB 2.0 port. So this is not sporting a micro or USB Type-C port yet. And going over to the left, you just get a blank side right there. Up top is only your 3.5 millimeter headset jack, and that is pretty much it. On the back, you have this metal part in the middle here. The sides are all plastic, so the device is not fully made out of metal. They're just using this cheap bent plastic or metal part in the middle right there. It has this nice diamond cut up here around the camera, so it looks pretty nice. Got a Moto logo down there, and overall it's sporting a pretty nice evolution of the Moto G look or design, whatever you want to call it. Let me just quickly unlock the device. I have been using this for a little while. Let's take a quick look at the front here. We have your earpiece right there and the 5 megapixel front-facing shooter. The earpiece is also your speaker, so there's no dual speaker setup on this device, so it's just that speaker up there, and it isn't very loud either. So it's very tinny, and it doesn't have very good sound to it. It's not very loud either, so if you want a device that is really loud and has a decent sound, you don't want to go with the Moto G. You just heard the new animation, or are hearing it right now. And at the bottom is your fingerprint reader that is not under glass. It's got a glass cover in the middle right here, but there's a cut around the glass right there, so it is not one of those special glass finishes. There's your speech mic down here at the front on the bottom there, and this is your 5-inch full HD IPS screen that is also actually a pretty good panel. So let's just slide the brightness fully up, and as you can see, yep, it's really nice to see this panel on a device that is as cheap, because this only costs 200 euros, and for that it is actually pretty decent, because this has a pretty high brightness. This shines at 500 nits. I measured it with my colorimeter, and it does a pretty good job. I mean, colors also look pretty decent. This might not be the best setting to see that. They don't change very much. There's no gray hue going over the screen or something like that when you tilt it. Viewing angles are pretty nice, and also contrast seems pretty good if you look at the white part of the battery meter that goes around the center part of the clock there. So overall, it's a pretty nice look, and it supports Android 7.0. Let's just go into the settings here and go into about the phone, and there you'll see we have Android 7.0 running on here. It's very close to stock, so you get the new app drawer from down here. You can also switch to the standard app drawer symbol that you know from back in the days. Sliding down from the top here, you get the standard notification shade, access to the settings, and it's all right there. This device actually has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, which is, as you just saw, extendable too. And there's a bunch of Motorola features on here. I haven't really set them up yet, but you can do just the usual stuff that you already know. So if you shake the device, the camera, the backlight turns on or turns off. So one of the nice Motorola features that the Moto G5 also gets is their always on screen, or their notification system. So basically you turn the device around and it will show you date, time, and also the charging level. There is no notification LED on this device, so you will have to rely on the screen lighting up in the way that I'm just trying to show you right here. The fingerprint reader is actually pretty fast, so if you look at the screen right now, and I'm just going to tap it, and it should unlock pretty fast. Sometimes it misses my fingerprint, but as you see, it lights up pretty quickly. It's not as fast on the Huawei as on the Huawei devices or a bunch of other smartphones, but this actually works very nice. What I don't like about the Moto G5 is its massive bezels. So this one has, it's almost like 5 millimeters in bezels around the sides. It's better on the bigger one that has a 5.2-inch screen, maybe just because they fit the screen better in there. This one doesn't really look very compact to me. Also, it's pretty thick at 9.5 millimeters. Overall, so far, I've been pretty happy with it. Decent call quality. I sometimes get some weird emergency notifications, which shouldn't be, because usually we don't get these in Europe. Maybe there's something wrong with the settings. But overall, it's been doing pretty nice. The Snapdragon 430 under the hood also does a pretty good job of running this device. And let's just run a bunch of quick benchmarks right here. So I got AndroBench on here, which is a storage benchmarking tool, and I'm just going to run all benchmarks. And I can already tell you that it does score pretty well. You get a sequential read speed of around, I think, 250 megabytes a second, and also sequential write seems to be pretty decent at around 40 megabytes a second. Let's just run this through, and we'll see in a second how much it actually scores. So here we have the results of the AndroBench benchmark, and as you can see, it has a sequential read speed of around 260 megabytes, and sequential write is at 45. This is because it still uses eMMC flash memory, not the new UFS memory that is much faster, but that's reserved for high-end devices. Overall, performance seems pretty good. Geekbench gives you an average score, just as it's to be expected. Battery life is not overwhelming. I ran the Geekbench battery test on this, and it scored just around 5 hours, I believe. That is even shorter than the Nokia 6 that I have. That one with its 3000 milliamp hour battery, screen brightness set to the same 250 candela per square meter. That actually scored 7 hours, and yeah, I'm kind of disappointed, but that is because the Snapdragon 430 in here is just not as power efficient as the newer Snapdragon 625, because the 430 still runs on a 28 nanometer, or is made in a 28 nanometer process, and that is just not as power efficient as the 625 that is made in 14 nanometers. So yeah, that's just been a very quick look at the Moto G5, getting it out of its box here in Germany. Should be out in Germany already. You can go to MediaMarkt and a bunch of other places and buy this for 199 euros, but you only get 2 gigs of RAM. If you want to order a model that has 3 gigs of RAM, you can actually go to a shop like proshop.de, which is a Danish company that actually sells their stuff to Germany, because the Scandinavian countries are also getting the 3 gigabyte version in this case. So yeah, that's just been a quick look at the G5. I'm Roland. If you like what I do on my channel, just follow me here, subscribe, hit the bell button right there so you get notified, and also follow me on Twitter for a bunch of leaks and videos like this one. I'll see you later.